welcome. This is our monthly Arcview Access program, and I am so excited to be here. Oh my gosh, we are going to have the most amazing show. We are not broadcasting from Chicago, and I was going to add in a few more Blues Brothers things, but I'm going to kick off with just saying we're going to be talking about cannabis and Cannabis 3.0. And there's some really unique things that this panel is going to talk about, and one of those is going to be trust. And so I don't have to tell you that we're in a very unique position right now, and the lack of trust this has reached an all-time high, and it's certainly not just in one aspect of our life. It's pretty much everywhere. So from our health to our neighbor, from law enforcement to our reliance on information, not to mention politics, and even sort of our lack of trust in our U.S. Postal Service. This has definitely impacted brands like no other time in our history. And as many of you may know this about me, I thrive on data and insights to help make real-time decisions that are really important, not only to our brand here at Arcview, but also for our community and the industry as well. So there's a report that I'm going to share. I'm going to have Erica go ahead and post that in the link so that everybody has access to this. But it's a really interesting study that was just done in June of this year. And what it is, it's sort of the current state of brand trust and what they refer to as super solver brands. And so let's take a look at what that means for a consumer. So what they're saying is 85% of consumers say that brands need to solve their personal problems. 80% of consumers believe that brands need to help solve society's problems. Almost 50% are willing to try a new brand on how they've responded to this pandemic. And a whopping 90% support products and solutions that help meet pandemic's real challenges, the things that we're struggling with right now. When you do build trust with your brand, the study also goes on to say that 75% say they'll stay loyal, and 60% are comfortable sharing their personal information with you, and 78% said they would actually post your content, share with others, and even defend you. So once you build that trust, hold on to it tight because they're your best advocate. However, reaching your audience is even more challenging before, and like that wasn't hard enough in cannabis. But when or if we can start using paid advertising, what we're finding is that 7 out of 10 consumers use ad blocking technology anyway. And so with all of this, how are we in cannabis looking at 3.0, and how are we going to do this together in building these amazing brands? So we've got some here today. And so what I'd like to do is introduce our moderator, Chris Brugrave, Arcview member, just an absolute branding guru and marketing guru. And for those of you who don't know Chris, he's a Belgian American. He is a multiple award-winning marketing professional. He's a thought leader. He's an entrepreneur. He's had a very long career as an advisor, an investor, a board member, a professor, an author. I could go on. But he spent 23 years in corporate marketing in tiny little companies like Procter & Gamble and Coca-Cola. And he then co-founded his own marketing advisory and micro ventures firm in New York City. And since 2015, Chris has been active in the cannabis space. And he's invested in a number of startups like Toast. And he's been a longstanding member, as I said, of Arcview and our collective fund. So Chris, welcome. And I want you all to trust me. You are in for a great show.
Thank you, Kim. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to moderate this Arcview session today. We'll have 40 minutes of interaction with 3 fantastic guests and then Q&A. We will hear 3 testimonies of people, why they have entered the brand space, how they are building brands with purpose. Purpose has already been explained by Kim. There's that other piece of the title called Cannabis 3.0. Quickly, what we meant with that is the following. Cannabis 1.0 would be the period before rec legalization. and the many decades before that lead up to it. Then Cannabis 2.0, the last 5 to 6 years of in which the green rush happened, a bit of irrational exuberance may have happened. The shakeout is partly happening as well. And then now we see the emergence of Cannabis 3.0, in which professionalization is happening across the value chain of cannabis, from seed to sale, and brands with purpose are being built. Now, brands with purpose also go back to the DNA of the category, which is very big on social justice, on equity, on diversity, and we'll hear more from our brand panel what they mean with that and how they bring that to life. The last piece is, people have been looking at Cannabis 3.0 as saying it's becoming more CPG-like. CPG stands for Consumer Packaged Goods. Now, if I paraphrase an Oldsmobile ad, we believe cannabis and hemp are not your father's Oldsmobile. It's not your father's category. And we'll talk about that, about the similarities and the differences between cannabis and hemp and how you build brands here versus classic businesses that people know and that investors may know. So without further ado, I will ask each of the three guests here to introduce their brand, what brought them in cannabis, what their brands stand for, and then we'll take it away from there. Cameron, then Jim, then Mikey. Cameron, your turn.
Thank you very much, Chris. I really appreciate it. I'm very glad to be here. So Sunderstrom was started about 5 years ago. We came into this industry because it's kind of a culmination of my life's work, essentially. You know, I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur. I've done a lot of technology stuff. In the last 20 years, I've done a lot of plant medicine stuff. And so all of these things kind of culminated into driving me into the cannabis industry about 5 years ago. Really, the effort started about 6 years ago. And it's really a passion of mine to really do something which is meaningful and can change the world. And I really feel like what we're doing today is absolutely on that path. So Sunderstrom is a top 10 California brand. Like I said, we've been in business for about 5 years. We have multiple manufacturing and distribution licenses in the state of California. We self-distribute in about 550 shops, growing every day. We are moving about 400,000 bags of gummies every month, which is blows my mind, actually. But I'm very pleased to announce today, we sent out a press release announcing that we have our new MSO strategy, and we will be opening up outside of California in Colorado and Massachusetts, as well as Canada, in the coming months. So this is going to be a big lift for us, but we've got a great team. They're very excited about it. And honestly, they're driven by the power of the plant. And we're going to talk a lot about that on this panel. And I'm really excited to talk about Cannabis 3.0 because it's going to be a fascinating time.
Thank you, Cameron. We'll come back to the point of scaling as well and how similar and different it is to scale in this business versus classic consumer goods. Jim, if I can turn to you. If you can just tell the audience what brought you into cannabis from your illustrious career and what brand are you building here?
I fell into cannabis by accident. I have a farm here in Oregon, and all of a sudden it became legal to grow cannabis recreationally, and I didn't want to grow hay, and I didn't want to grow any GMO beets. So I said, what the hell, it's the new agriculture. And I just kind of started from scratch, and I've been doing it for about 5 years now. And the purpose of it was just to have something to do. And as I grew along with these beautiful ladies that grow in my field, they have led me on a path of purpose and emotion and insight and joy and healing and community and veterans. And it's been a very beautiful, beautiful journey that I've been on alongside these plants. My farm is called Belushi's Farm. The brands I have are one called Captain Jack, which is Captain Jack was the weed dealer for SNL back in the early 70s when Danny Aykroyd and all those guys were there. He had this strain from the Kush Mountains that he brought the seeds over. He's been growing them from seed to flower ever since. And he was the one who delivered the weed to those wonderful writers. And he was known as the smell of SNL because the hallways were filled with it. And I swear Coneheads came out of that haze of Captain Jack's. So I have Captain Jack Landrace strain, not a very high THC, but it's got about 5% terpenes in it, which the entourage effect is just marvelous, old school creative flavor. And then I have Belushi's Secret Stash, which is kind of my premium brand. And then the one that I'm just so excited about, we're having such great success with, is the Blues Brothers IP that my brother John and Dan Aykroyd started over 40 years ago. And the Blues Brothers represents music, which is the body, the resonance of that sound and what it does and the joy it brings. Mischievousness, which is the fun part of cannabis, the really kind of goofy, fun stuff. And the most important part for me that I've discovered is the mission from God. The Blues Brothers were always on a mission to God to help the orphans, and I am on a mission from God to help heal our community from the PTSD that we've all suffered. I mean, the number one fear in life is death, and the number two fear in life is collapse of family. And I believe everybody is touched by the collapse of families somehow, whether it's their parents losing their business or whether it's a divorce or a sibling who died like mine, or a severe illness in the family, or alcoholism. All these tragic things that happen in our lives that create a screaming inside, an anxiety of screaming. And screaming turns into men like me into barking. And families don't like to hear barks. They don't understand it comes from trauma. Well, and I think cannabis can quiet the screaming it has in me and it has in the community around me, whether the screaming is from pain or whether it's screaming is from being a medic in Iraq and seeing terrible things happen to people. So my purpose is mission from God to heal, to help, and do it with quality and cleanliness. And so that's my overall mission.
Thank you. And we'll come back to that. There's definitely a very rich vein of storytelling there in the Belushi Farms brand and the various ones that you have. Let me turn to Mikey to introduce his series of brands. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. And it's great to be here today. So my name is Mikey Steinmetz. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Flow Cannabis Co. I'm originally from Caracas, Venezuela. Grew up down there, was raised down there, and have a series of kind of jobs out of college in investment banking as an engineer at NASA for some time, and then spent the greater part of my career after college in the kind of entrepreneurial realm. Built a food distribution company down in my home country, which was kind of CPG focused, brand building focused, and a national kind of distribution footprint. And I decided to kind of take my skills and my experience and move to California in 2013 with my wife. And we both kind of co-started Flow Cannabis Co. together. And today, we have a series of brands under our portfolio. Our flagship brand, Flow Kana, Caldera brand, which we're actually launching today, or yesterday rather. It's all a blur now. And Roots, which is kind of a more value focused economy line that we carry. But all these brands are kind of connected by our kind of broader, bigger mission at Flow Cannabis Co., which is around really sustainability. And sustainability from all forms and factors, right? Not just environmental sustainability, but for us, sustainability is about economic sustainability, cultural sustainability, community sustainability. So the all-encompassing word around that. And what really drew my wife and I to cannabis to start this business is really the potential that this industry has to transform this planet in many realms and in many areas and in many verticals. Right, the cannabis that we're seeing right now through consumption, there's a medical benefit to it. There's biofuels and energy. There's textiles and fabrics and everything in between. So we're pretty excited to kind of help usher this new industry into the mainstream and really kind of help evolve the world into kind of more cannabis consciousness. So that's kind of what excites me today. And I'm happy to be here today with all of you.
Let me build on it for a moment, Mikey, and then I'll go back to Cameron and to Jim. The trust component that Kim highlighted. This category is young, new, and is growing fast, but it's growing in leaps and bounds and with a lot of questions by a number of people around it. So you not only work with the cultivators in a very special way, but then you're now building those brands. What do you see should brands do to earn the trust of not only the consumer, but also the investor?
That's a great question. So, for me, one of my favorite marketing gurus is Simon Sinek. And one of his expressions rather is, consumers don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? So I think for us, and our focus has been very clear from the beginning and kind of what our why is and why we do what we do. And I think businesses and brands that are very clear in terms of what they believe, they attract people that believe what they believe in. That goes to employees, that goes to investors, that goes to consumers. So, to your point, this emerging industry, as it relates to 2.0 and 3.0, right? The 1.0 has been here for decades, and we have to acknowledge that history and that legacy. There's a lot of questions, right? Our industry, for millennia, was just dealing with the plant, and in just very short years, so much information, so much variety, so much uniqueness has come to it. And during the illicit market days when we were dealing with a dealer, all you had was the few 30 seconds that your dealer came into your house, maybe a little visual inspection, a smell, but you wanted that dealer out of your house as quickly as possible, right? And you were just kind of happy that you got the product, you got the transaction, and it was done. Now we go to bud tenders and we go to dispensaries, and you have this, infinite amount of products and infinite amount of brands. And, to your point, how do we build that trust and how do we build that connection? I think it's all really about being consistent, being authentic, being true. And there's a great deal for us in particular around education, right? When we started in this industry, sun-grown cannabis, which is something that we're committed to entirely, it was not the norm, right? Most people knew cannabis through the lens of indoor cultivation. So really educating the market and educating the consumers of, the benefits of sun-grown, right? The plant that has, a full 9-month cycle under the sun, a full cannabinoid terpene development versus the cannabis plant that has, a 6-week cycle forced into flower in an indoor grow. So we spend a lot of time educating, a lot of time with our consumers, a lot of times with our dispensaries, and trust is something that is, it's not something that you get overnight, and it's not something I think that you achieve. It's something that you continue to build over time. And I think that's really important.
You build it for years and you can lose it in a second,
Correct.
Now, so
Yep.
One of your points you made is, and I'll turn to Cameron then for his point, his thoughts is it's a repeatable experience. An element of brands in the classic consumer goods business is the fact that the consumer constantly knows what they can buy. And the experience is repeatable in some form, shape, or fashion. Or maybe a wine is not exactly the same each time, but the experience is more or less the same. Cameron, how do you approach the point of building trust and earning trust from both consumer and investor?
Yeah, it's crucial and vital to everything that we've done from the inception of our business. I mean, the truth is we got into this business waiting for Cannabis 3.0 to happen, because Cannabis 3.0 is about the power of the brands and the building of the brands. And to be honest, there were almost really no brands in Cannabis 1.0. There were half kind of brands in Cannabis 2.0. And now we see the evolution of Cannabis 3.0 with the building of the brands. So a thunderstorm is a thunderstorm where the sun shines through the rain clouds. We came into this industry to be that shining light that kind of brought this beautiful plant out of the darkness. And we wanted to be that brand that consumers could trust. So there's a few things that are really very important for us. Number that we built this company on, and we call them our pillars of quality. The first one is the quality of our products. We make sure that our products are healthy, safe, consistent, reliable, time and time again, that a consumer can buy one of our Kana gummies today and have exactly the same experience they had 6 months ago. And this is why CannaSafe, for example, awarded us last year with the most accurately formulated edible of the year, because we are so particular about all of our processes and how we actually produce these products to make sure that they are completely, they provide a completely reliable and consistent experience. The other thing is that we tested all of our products from the inception of the company 5 years ago. We were CannabisSafe's very first, we're CannabisSafe's oldest customer today. So, we also had in-house testing. We wanted to make sure that what we put in our consumers' bodies was something that we were willing to ingest in our bodies. And if it wasn't good enough for us, it's not good enough for them. So that consistent, reliable experience was super important. The other thing is quality of life. We want to make sure that our products improve people's lives, right? And lead to a life of optimal wellness. Everything we do is driven by providing that consumer, that patient with an improved life experience, whether they're recreational or medical. We actually don't really distinguish between the two. For us, you may be a medical patient in the morning dealing with back pain, and then you be smoking a joint with your friends at night as a social lubricant. It's all integral into your day-to-day life. And the third part of it is the quality of community. This plant has the power to heal individuals, but it also has the power to heal communities itself and themselves. And so, we want what we do to spread from the individuals to the community, so that people communicate better, that they're less anxious, that they're able to deal with issues and challenges of day-to-day life better. And we've seen that with COVID, and that's one of the reasons that cannabis is an essential medicine, right? That's why we're so powerful today in these challenging times. Another important point for us is part of our branding is that we always called ourselves, from the minute we started this company, the Nordstroms of the industry. Any consumer or any shop could return any product anytime for any reason, no questions asked. We get their money back, no problem. If it's not good enough for them, it's not good enough for us. We don't want to put it on the shelf. So we stepped into this, making sure that everything we did flowed into those drivers, flowed into those important kind of pillars of things that we actually cared about and our ethos. And I think that's why we've become the brand that we've become today. And we've got a proud team that should be proud.
Thank you. So this is how Thunderstorm is translating trust on a day-to-day operations basis. It's in its standard operating practices, if you will, and in its thinking. Jim, a question that you may have asked many times. You have your career before, which can help and which can also ask people questions. Well, why would I trust this gentleman to be providing me a consistent, repeatable experience in this new category? How would you answer that?
Well, look, first of all, I don't think there really is any brands in cannabis. I know that's an unpopular thing to say. There's an awful lot of pretty boxes, and there's an awful lot of boxes, and there's an awful lot of gummies, and there's an awful lot of chocolates. And how that takes traction is probably through the stories that the bud tenders tell. They're the ones that are helping your brand, because all the great things that you gentlemen are saying are great among us. But when I visit the dispensaries, I'm in 50 dispensaries. I've been to each one of them maybe 3 times, and I deal with people and I see what they want and what they look for. And they know nothing when they walk in those stores. They don't know this box from this box from this box from this box. So I think branding is 2 things. One is authenticity, which I believe I bring authenticity because I'm a grower. I know everything, not everything. I know everything that I don't know. I mean, I know that the ground is, I keep it at 64 degrees temperature in order for the micronutrients to go into the roots better, in order the THC. I know I from seed all the way to patient, I've been involved. So the authenticity for me is great. Marketing, I believe, on a product has to have an emotional tie. You have to feel emotion when you look at that box. The Blues Brothers brand alone is a 40-year-old brand that's been out in the public for years internationally, and it represents music, mischievousness, a mission from God. And I'm bringing that mission because I think those 3 things are what cannabis is about. And I'm tying the emotion from what people feel when they've seen that movie to this authenticity, to the brother, direct family line. Then on top of the emotion that's very important to build the trust, they trust the Blues Brothers. They trust me because now I have a TV show, and it's the only one of its kind. There's no gimmick to it. It's called Growing Belushi, and it's not just about growing cannabis. It's about me growing as a person, about the community growing, about medicine, about healing, about comedy to keep them entertained. It's got music, mischievousness, and a mission from God. This is the only platform we have in our industry right now to show the American people, the red and the blue, who are curious but are frightened. This is the only show that can show them the safety involved, the medicine involved, and build the confidence in cannabis. So I'm taking my marketing and my branding on TV. I have created a show that was a hard sell, and we are negotiating for a second season, 8 episodes, where I'm going to be the Charles Kowalt of cannabis, with comedy, with music, with the mission. And I'm going to be traveling and showing how these things are made and creating visual storytelling that people can attach to when they walk into a store. And when you walk in a store and you see that Blues Brothers logo 15 feet away in the middle of 100 boxes, you see, oh, they smile. And as soon as they smile, they feel connected to it and they reach for it and try it. And it's got to be damn good when it happens. So I believe branding has to do with storytelling, emotion, emotional tie, and yes, all the other things too, the quality, you know, all the things that these wonderful gentlemen, very smart gentlemen, by the way, I have great respect for them, has said. But what's missing is the storytelling. Somebody told me how well their company is doing, how well this company doing. And I said, well, what's the story on your company? And he gave me all the stats. And I said, that's a great business story for a business magazine. How well you grew your business. I said, but there's no story. There's no emotion. Where is the emotion that these consumers are going to tie to and trust? Because what is trust but relationship? And what is relationship but a connection of emotion? And what is marketing? And that is being authentic, connecting in an emotional way, the why, as you said. And I believe that cannabis needs that more. And I believe this TV show is again, there's nobody getting high on this show. It's not about stoners like they do. And it's not a game show. And it's not a murder hunt. This is a reflection of our industry, who we are. And we are great men and women who have a beautiful belief in this plant and the healing, the pathway to healing that it offers. And when I get that across to the general population who trust me from my comedies, trust my brother from the movies and comedy, I believe I can influence them into
Jim,
our industry.
Jim, thank you for those.
I'm sorry, I get really worked up.
No, that's fine. Again, emotion is part and parcel of the category, and I fully agree. Having been 30 years in this marketing business, it is the driver of everything. So, but you brought up 2 important points. One is the fact that there's no real brands yet, is what you said. This is an assertion. I'll come back to you, and I'll go to Mikey and Cameron. Lately, there was a comment made by Columbia Care's growth officer who said there's no McDonald's, no Coca-Cola yet in cannabis, and that statement has been made by many others, which is good and bad, because it's an opportunity for many people to become that, or to become part and parcel of a plethora of brands that we are known and used by many. So yes, we're not even in the foothills, is the number one. Right. The number one. The number 2 point that I wanted to add as a provocation to everybody is the provocation you made is trust is all well, but I would say, coming from the classic consumer goods business, trust is table stakes. The second piece is meaningful differentiation as a brand. And there, this category is in the very, very beginning. And also is handicapped. That's why I say Oldsmobile. It's not your father's Oldsmobile. The rules are different for cannabis and hemp at the moment than for classic CPG. So let me turn to Mikey and then back to Cameron, back to you, Jim. Mikey, how do you feel about the statement there's no real brand yet that has won this race. And second, how do you build meaningful differentiation, the necessary condition on top of the sufficient condition on top of the necessary condition of trust?
Great. So yeah, I would agree with that comment. There's no really mainstream brand that has really kind of set its footing and kind of set a hold of the marketplace. And I think part of the reason is, this market is growing and developing and kind of in its 2.0, 3.0 years. And the truth is, to build, not good brands, but to build great brands, that takes a lot of time, right? And the challenges with interstate commerce and the challenges with scaling and the challenges with capital, just to add a few of the regulatory challenges, just makes it very difficult to achieve that, right? But that also provides a great opportunity for all of us to play in that race, right? So to your comment on trust and how do we build it, I agree that the linchpin is that emotional connection, right? Emotions are the way the brain encodes things of value, and any brand that connects emotionally with consumers are the ones that are going to win every single time. And that's really kind of what we focus on and how we were born as a business. For us, and to Jim's point around storytelling, there's an incredible story to be told around cannabis and prohibition, and where that's really left this entire industry in terms of the bigger picture of agriculture, right? Cannabis may possibly be the last agricultural product on this planet, right? We got what we got when we got planet Earth, right? We're not creating new agricultural products. And because of prohibition, this one's kind of left unfeathered to regulations, unfeathered to market forces, and just kind of left growing in the hills under prohibition, right? And every single other product and every single agricultural product on this planet has been monocropped to death, right? With corn, soy, wheat, bulgur, just as examples, the typical big ag model has kind of decimated the planet. So with cannabis, and in the 21st century, with all the tools and networks and technologies that we have today, we have the opportunity to kind of reinstate what agriculture should be for the 21st century. And that's what we are part of. And that's kind of what we're trying to do to kind of fight and dismantle kind of the status quo. And we started off with Flocana, which sources and aggregates from regenerative craft cannabis farmers from legacy growing regions of California. And their practices are far beyond organic, right? They're regenerative and even far beyond that. And I think for us, that's kind of what we hope to educate over time, and hope that our brand actually plays a part in kind of not only being the model of how cannabis can grow, but even have ways to influence agriculture in general after that.
So your story on the box is to move away from being a pretty box, is the story of cultivation, where you come from, how you translate Mother Earth into a beautiful product. Cameron, how do you do this? How do you translate, your opinion, I'll repeat the question, on the opportunity and challenge of not having all the brands, and how do you build it?
Yeah, I actually agree with everything both of them just said, particularly Jim. I 100% agree with you. There has been there are no brands really yet in this industry for a variety of reasons. I think we're seeing the inception of the early stages of true brands developing, right? True brands that are building that trust with the consumer. But I think, one of the reasons that it hasn't happened is that, this industry's been moving at light speed, but at the snail's pace at the same time. It's kind of like a race car where the driver has her hands shackled behind her back, and for all the regulatory reasons and just transitioning from, in California, for example, Prop 215 to the regulated market is super challenging. But there does have to be that ethos and that passion and that reason that you got into this industry, that you're driving your business, right? And for us, it is the power of the plant. It is the ability of that plant to actually change people's lives and lead them to a life of optimal wellness. And so I think that as we move into this new phase of 3.0, this is about the inception of brand building and which brands that can resonate with the consumers, right? And why they care about it. I think that when brands actually embark on their activations, they have to embark on activations that are culturally relevant. And I'll give you a perfect example. Candescent just launched its Justice joints. I think that's a really interesting concept, right? That is trying to give back to the community, right? And with a product that has a powerful message embedded in it. You know, consumers want to connect with brands who care about things that they care about, right? And I think that messaging has been really hard to get out. But I think, you know, those of us in the industry, it's a requirement for us as we move forward that we connect with these consumers in a way about, in this kind of way about things that they're very passionate about. And that's, you know, it's great to tell a story about where you came from, but you have to live within that story, and you have to believe in it, and you have to adapt that story as you move forward. So I think, you know, these are examples of what's going to be crucially important as we move forward.
I have the pleasure to teach at NYU Stern at the business school. It took me years to convince the school to allow cannabis to be taught. It was like a new frontier. They allowed Bitcoin, they allowed all the money parts, but not cannabis. Finally, we're there. This is the second year, and I actually have the number of MBAs listening that work on a project for LPP, for Last Prisoner Project. Jim, I know that you're somehow, this is close to your heart as well, and this is part of the storytelling discussion. Care to comment?
Jim, I believe you're muted.
You're muted.
I think this is an important discussion we're having here about that emotional tie. And I'm telling you, gentlemen, that I got it. I figured it out, man. I got a TV show. I got a TV show that's going to show our stories. We're going to create stories for the agriculture, the growing, living in it. Like you said, literally being with veterans who are using cannabis because their legs are spasming, because they can't control their paralyzed legs. I'm showing that stuff. I'm showing the power of it. This is the only promotional venue that our industry has besides local ads. And this intellectual story of why we're doing it. I'm going to show the visceral story and live in it. And I'm going to really create something for all us men and women in this industry. I really am excited about it because I'm excited about what you're saying, because the Flow Canada's got a great story, but somebody's got to tell it.
Jim, let me push it technically one level further. This is one of the differences and similarities between us and, let's say, classic consumer goods. The social media that they have at their disposal they have much less restrictions than what we have. Everybody here that wants a website or wants to do something is taken down, or is the AdWords that you want to choose to bring your message across hit regulation. How would your TV show circumvent this?
Well, it's not circumvent. It's working alongside social media. I have a whole social media campaign. You know, I have all kinds of followers. I have different sites. I have websites. I'm doing it all. But the TV show feeds that. I mean, I had trouble with dispensaries taking my product because they thought it was just, you know, there's snots up here in Southern Oregon, you know, because you were a celebrity. I go, no, I'm a grower. And I went, okay, I got to drive the consumer in to ask for my product because I'm not going to beg these dispensaries anymore. Now they're all calling me because of 3 shows that air, because people are calling them, do you have Belushi products? Do you have Belushi products? I'm out of weed because this TV just blew up. You see it on the screen and it resonates with people. And there are great stories. Flow Canada's a great story. These men that grew up in those mountains off the grid, and you convincing them to come down and show their secrets and their craft. That's a great story. But how do you get it out there? I believe, and I don't pat myself on the back often at all, because I really don't think I'm that good of an actor, but I believe I'm creating a vehicle here that can help us all. And I'm going to do Last Prisoners Project in it. Michael Thompson is about to be released because of Steve D'Angelo and Mary Bailey in Michigan. He's been in jail for 24 years for 3 pounds of cannabis. We are going to try to release everybody, all 40,000 of them, out of jail for cannabis infractions. It was race control. This came up with Harry Anslinger back in the 30s. And even before that, in 1910, they created these cannabis laws to keep the refugees from the Mexican Revolution and the Afro-Caribbean sailors in New Orleans under control. It was never about the plant. It was always about who was using it, controlling them. So that story is in there. I want to give 1.0, 2.0 to bust open this 3.0. And the Last Prisoners Project is the best way for social justice within our industry and to help these families that have collapsed because their husbands went to jail for 3 pounds of pot, which I'm selling 50 pounds. I'm driving around on my Ford Explorer. I'm making money and they're in jail. It doesn't make sense.
It's a discovery that I made myself as I entered 5-6 years ago in the category. How unequitable it is at the moment. And coming from abroad, I was less aware than, let's say, an average American as to what was going on here.
It's terrible.
It's visceral. And this is why I also wanted, again, work with the LPP and Stern to ensure we can help them. It sounds like you're making not the Blues Brothers, but the Green Brothers at the moment.
Weed Brothers.
The Weed Brothers.
Weed Brothers.
The Weed Brothers is the new curriculum. Let me ask you, Jim, and then I'll come and as a last question to the two others as well, because conscious of time. Time goes quickly. Belushi Farms is an Oregon brand, but how national are you, or can you be?
Well, I'm because of the TV show, I'm in deep discussions with quite a few multi-state operators because they understand what I'm trying to do with promotion and branding, and it's easily scalable with very smart people. I need smart people around me. Greg Steinberg, my CEO, is quite brilliant at that, and I'm grateful for that. It's an international brand because this TV show will sell in Canada, will sell in Germany. John and I are huge in Germany. They eat up everything that we're in. Australia. This is an international show, and we're going to educate the world on the safety and the confidence and the healing powers and the fun. Because this is comedy in here too. It's not some dry little show. The fun of cannabis. Because when you have fun and feel joyful, you feel enlightened. And when you feel enlightened, you become more compassionate and you see more light, and you may make some subconscious changes to the good and generosity of spirit. This is the drive of my purpose in this show. And our industry all falls around that. I mean, there's a story I tell. I was a bouncer in Chicago. And I never broke up a fight between two potheads. Okay, maybe they were arguing over who gets the last chip in the Cheetos bag, but this is a beautiful. People become really enlightened and sweet and generous. And I have a brand called Marriage Counselor. Trust me. Whew. Take a little hit of this before you come downstairs. And your wife starts.
Don't keep some surprises for us for the.
No, Marriage Counselor. This is where it's at, man. It's saving marriages. I don't know if it's going to save mine, but it sure helps.
That we want to hear more about later. But let me go back to Mikey and Cameron to hear about how they will scale. I mean, Toast, the brand that you see in the back, was born in Aspen in Colorado in 2017, is now in 3 states in cannabis and nationally in hemp. And it takes a lot of blood and sweat and tears to do that. So, Mikey, how are you going to break out of California? Cameron, you just announced. Tell us more.
Yeah. So, at the Flow Cannabis Co. business model, we were fortunate enough to raise a significant amount of capital when we could, and we've used that to deploy that efficiently here in California. So, in terms of the infrastructure that we stand on today, from everything from aggregation to sourcing to packaging flower, packaging pre-rolls to producing extracts and oils and distribution, everything in the middle of the chain. We have pretty large scale capacity that's available not only to expand throughout the rest of California as this market grows, but even beyond, right? And the property that we took over was the original Fetzer winery. The Fetzer winery was the 3rd largest winery in the US at its heyday, with national and international distribution. So it's really built for scale. And for me, the question of national expansion, has to come with a lot of authenticity to it as the brands come as well. And our brand particularly is very, very focused and very committed to the sun-grown ecosystem, to the legacy farmers, so the diverse genetic base that exists in this area. We're bullish in the future of appellations and microclimates, and that, California, Southern Oregon are going to be the producing states in the future, right? When you look at agriculture as a whole, California produces 2/3 of the nation's fruits and vegetables, right? Some categories like strawberries and almonds would produce 99%, right? So when these statewide borders come down, and that's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, I believe all of cultivation will move to California. I believe all of manufactured goods will come to California, because you want to value add the product very close to the source. You don't want to be transporting high volume, low value kind of flour across state line. You want to manufacture it and value add it very close to the source. And we're really set up for that.
That's a bold statement. We definitely have to come back to in the future, Arcview. What will happen when state borders fall away? And will they let it? But indeed, how would the vertical, how would the seed to sale, what would happen in the value chain? But let me go to Cameron for his closing comment on scaling.
Yeah, I mean, when we got into this industry, well, first of all, let me start by saying that we are not cultivators, right? We are making Kana edibles, we are making nanomolecular sublinguals, and we have our line of vapes as well, our wind vapes. So, to me, that they're completely different worlds. And so when we entered into this industry, we looked around and said, where can we enter, where we can learn the most, where we can build our business and build successfully and build our brand, right? And in the end, we came back to California, right? Because I know that there's a lot of other great stuff going on in other states, but we just felt like the competition in the market was so fierce in California, and the market was so large that this was the place where we were really going to understand what it means to build a business that has been based on revolutionaries coming out of the darkness into the light and providing this plant medicine, right? So for us, we wanted to win in California before we even set our sights on other markets, and so we feel like we're at that point. And we also wanted to make sure that our execution was top notch, and that we could deliver product to all the customers when they need it, in a way that they needed it, and that we were rock solid here before we actually set our sights elsewhere. So we feel like we're at that point, and so that's why we now want to go into Colorado, Massachusetts, and Canada as well, to be an international brand, to be able to help teach the world what we've done here in California. And I think the key is your messaging has to be on point. You have to have the proper ethos, meaning that consumers know why you care about what you do, right? And then there's a reason that you're doing what you're doing, and that you respect the power of the plant, and that you can actually execute well, right? Because Cannabis 3.0 is about the power of the brand, but you also have to be able to execute well and deliver to consumers a consistent and reliable experience. And I think that's really important.
On that note, gentlemen, I would like to thank you for your comments. I'm going to open it to Luis and the various questions that have popped in, how to select them. I wanted to say, in closing, a toast to Cannabis 3.0 and to storytelling and authenticity and emotion.
And a toast to you, Chris. Thank you so much for moderating. That was incredible. Hi, everyone. This is Louis Hahn, VP here at the Arcview Group. Thank you so much again to everybody. That was incredibly insightful. What a wonderful conversation just about the evolution of cannabis branding. Before I joined Arcview, I used to run a cannabis delivery myself 6 years ago in 2014. And back then, the competition was delivering dry flower in inconspicuous red solo cups covered in tissue paper. You could kind of get away with that in the Prop 215 days in the pre-legalized California. But in just 5 years, we've grown so much with thought leaders like yourselves leading this evolution of building brands with a purpose. So with that said, let's get on to the audience Q&A. We did have some get sent in prior to today's call. So I wanted to pose this question actually to all four of you. We talked a lot about the purpose behind the brand, but what about the purpose behind each of you? I want to get personal a little bit. Can you tell me about your why? Why do you do what you do? Was there a moment or experience where you said, wow, I just have to start a company in cannabis? Why don't we start with Chris, then Cameron, then Jim, then Mikey?
Very quickly, well, again, my background is I'm 30 odd years in the business. The reason why I got into cannabis is my daughter. You know, when you're the father of a 21-year-old at school, at university in New York, the narcotics and drugs, etc., comes at the forefront. I've also been years and years, I was a CMO for Anheuser-Busch InBev, so I dealt with alcohol and with highly regulated businesses. But how do you deal with these on a personal level? So there was a lot of reverse mentoring going on, back and forth, and I decided to risk my reputation, if you will, in the classic consumer goods business, which was not an obvious thing to do 5 years ago, and say, let me help shape the cannabis and business, which I knew nothing about, absolutely zero, and study it and see what applies of CPG, what doesn't, and be a student of this business, help it, shape it in a responsible way. That's essentially what brought me in it. And since then, I've learned a ton. I'm very grateful that I can be part of what is a historic thing. Same like internet, this is another category that is coming in and shapes up the entire consumer goods business and pharma and food and everything else. So it doesn't happen very often in your lifetime to be part of such a revolution.
And we're seeing that more and more people with more traditional classic experience, such as yourself, Chris, bringing that experience to cannabis to help the industry grow. Cameron, what's your story?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So my story is about 25 years ago. I was doing nutrition research, very passionate about nutrition, stumbled upon the power of plant medicines and the healing power of plants. You know, that's been a great interest of mine for a long time. And, you know, I went through some really difficult kind of personal times in about 10 years ago. And I decided to just shut down and, you know, go on a walkabout for a while. And I did a lot of personal work in some very interesting places. So I spent almost a year actually living, you know, or 6 months living deep in the Amazon forest. Studying a lot of shamanism and having some very interesting experiences down there. I also did it in West Africa and Asia, and really was on this kind of personal journey to learn about myself and learn about consciousness. And kind of interesting, I've been a Burning Man person for about 20 years, but also have a science background. So I try to blend those worlds together and I tried to figure out, you know, what it is I wanted to do when I grew up. And I realized when I kind of came back that cannabis was actually a perfect way to blend my interest in science, in plant medicines, in consciousness, and be able to create a business that would actually have the proper ethos, right? A reason that we're actually doing what we're doing. So, you know, I put all those things together. I called one of my college buddies up and I said, you know, you've been a lifelong consumer of cannabis. We love plant medicines. We've done shamanic journeys together. You know, why are we not in this industry? Why are we not, you know, taking everything we've learned and applying it to help, you know, all kinds of people all over the world? And so that's really how I got into it. And I'm actually it's what drives me every single day.
I wonder if someone could count up how many startups, cannabis or otherwise, were born out of a conversation or inspiration out of Burning Man. So that's awesome, Cameron. Thank you so much. Jim, what was your moment where you were just inspired to start a business in the cannabis industry? I believe you're muted, Jim.
First of all, I love your journeys down there in South America. I've been down to Peru a few times and did some journey work down there. It's quite enlightening. That's another whole category. Listen, it all comes down to something that everybody knows about, and I've had to wrestle with for decades. Wasn't able to keep it private like other families may. And my brother John died of a drug overdose. So I've been kind of searching through that trauma for decades, the grief and what it's done to my physiological nervous system and how it makes me bark, and dealing with that trauma forever. And this cannabis seems to be the one thing that, for me personally, stops the barking, stops the screaming. But it's led me to a whole thing about the resolve with my brother and resolve with trauma. And if we knew what we knew about cannabis today, the medicine, the science behind it, and the healing powers, if we knew that in the 70s, cannabis wouldn't have been considered a drug. It would have been considered the medicine. And I really believe that my brother John and many, many people would be alive today. If John was a pothead, he'd be alive today. I've said that before. Danny Aykroyd actually said that to me. And so there are a lot of opiate overdoses. I mean, yesterday, great lawsuit against the OxyContin Purdue. I mean, and I'm involved with this opiate trade program where, anyway, I've got a model for some healing with the people on the street, the homeless people, the schizophrenics that are screaming, the opiate overdose. Anyway, so my attachment to it is making some value out of these lessons and this trauma that I've been dragged through. And using John and the Blues Brothers brings it full circle for me. And it just feels right in my body that I'm on this path. And so, yeah, it has to do with what I said at the beginning. The number 2 fear in life is the collapse of family. And my family collapsed. And it collapsed a few times. My dad lost his business. But when John died, it was everything. So that why for me personally is I don't want my children to feel the legacy of that death. I want them to feel the legacy of what great talent he brought, joy to the world. Joy. Really, I'm in the joy business, the magic business. My family, make people laugh, release those endorphins, make them feel good, entertained. And I wish he was here, he could entertain more. And I'm carrying it on the best I can. And I think with cannabis, I can even expand it to more people, bring them a sense of joy, relief. And for me personally. So yeah, but why did I fall into it? I think I was just led into it somehow through my journey through Peru. Opening the lights, Papatua. So yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm here to help other families not collapse.
That's such a beautiful story. Thank you so much, Jim. You're right. The topic of the intersection of cannabis with mental health, as even just talking about mental health in general, gets less and less stigmatized. I think cannabis will play a powerful role there.
Yes.
Thank you. Mikey, your story. What inspired you to get into the cannabis industry?
Yes. So, well, it was a funny anecdote. It seems like all the people here on the panel have used these shamanistic rituals to find answers. So that's a good common thread among us. And I think cannabis is very similar as a psychoactive plant that really is consciousness enhancing in many ways. And starting off from the micro of like, why did I start Flowcana? Why have we grown to Flow Cannabis Co? And really, what's my personal why and where we're headed next? For the cannabis industry, like we said, we're in this, cannabis 2.0, cannabis 3.0, and the opportunity for the first movers, kind of entrepreneurs and business owners to really shape this industry, to mold this industry, to make it look like whatever they choose to manifest is real, right? And that's like an entrepreneur's kind of wet dream, right? I kind of often say amongst the executive team, if Tesla was born at the beginning of the automotive revolution, where we have decades of what we've developed and the dependency on fossil fuels and everything we've created in that industry. We're trying to undo a lot of the wrongs that we did, at the time. And today in cannabis, we get the opportunity in this regulatory environment, as entrepreneurs to shape it, right? So everything that we do and every product that we put out there, we put it with that lens, right? How is this improving our lives? How is this improving our industry? And what industry are we building, right? Our ultimate goal is to build an industry that we can be proud of, right? So at the micro at Flowcana and Flow Cannabis Co., that's really what excites us and why we get out of bed every day. For me on a kind of a more macro, more longer term horizon, my wife and I have always kind of gelled around the concept of, turning business for good, right? Business in this 21st century can play a critical role to transform many communities and many countries, right? And for us, business and the corporate world in many ways has maybe deviated and focused on that kind of bottom line too acutely. And that bottom line matters, right? That economic sustainability matters, and it matters a lot, right? Paying the bills, paying the people, paying investors, that's hyper important. But the concept of sustainability goes beyond that, to the planet, to the environment, to culture, to communities. And for us, I hope to take the Flow brand. One of my favorite entrepreneurs and business owners, Richard Branson, and what he's done with the Virgin Group. Right, and Virgin brand has gone across categories, across industries, and he's infused his DNA and his passion to shape the status quo in every one of the industries and any one of his endeavors. And that's what we hope to do to the Flow brand. So, we started off with Flowcana, now Flow Cannabis Co., but the hopes is that the Flow Group can get into other areas of retail and hospitality, and maybe even Flow Galactic one day in the future. And that's what I hope to do, and do it in a way where business is actually improving our lives, not just focusing on one dimension of sustainability.
Thank you so much, Mikey. You're right. Using business and capitalism as a vehicle for political and social change to address that triple bottom line approach, that's really an opportunity for the cannabis industry to do that right from the beginning, right from the start. Great. Well, I just have one more question for all the panelists, and I want to go in reverse order each time, mix things up a little bit. But before I get to that, people in the audience, I'm so sorry if I didn't get to your question. There's just more than 200 of you on the call, so it's a little difficult to get to everybody, but I think this one will be an interesting one. Let's pretend that you could wave a magic wand, right, and change one thing about the cannabis industry. I think everyone on this call can generally get behind decriminalization and legalization, but what else? If you could wave that magic wand and change one thing about the cannabis industry, what would that be? Mike, let's have you start, and we'll go in reverse order. Then to Jim, then Cameron, then to Chris.
Yeah, so there's lots of things I would wish for with that magic wand. More often than not, I wish I had one of those things. But just talking about just the kind of the regulatory framework and compliance and just kind of that piece of this industry, which is so important, right? And the one difference and the one challenge with this industry, unlike other traditional CPG, that's just kind of driven by market forces, supply, demand, marketing, brand building, et cetera. Our industry is very much shaped by regulatory forces, right? The regulations and the framework, that's why the California cannabis industry looks very different than the one in Florida, looks very different than the one in Massachusetts, and looks very different than the one in Canada. The regulatory forces really shape that. So from a regulatory perspective, safe banking is like the first step that we would like to see, right? Access to financial services, access to real treatment. I think as a second level, interstate commerce for us is super important. How long do we have to create these microcosms of small little supply chains in every state and stand up these massive energy intensive indoor facilities in states that don't produce any agriculture to begin with? So interstate commerce for us is huge. And then obviously, legalization would be the holy grail at the end, right? And with all of those changes comes many advances and many improvements, right? Like the use of cannabis in other areas, like we talked about, medicine and recreation here. We have like fabrics and biofuels, and a whole series of other products like hempcrete and construction materials. Like that still is yet to come, and I'm excited to kind of see that happen. And most importantly too, I think cannabis legalization can undo a lot of the wrongs that we've had from the war on drugs, right? Social equity is a huge important issue around this, and this racial injustice that we feel today in America and indeed in the planet is something that this signature on a pen and the approval of this product at a federal legal level can undo a lot of these things. So, I think that I'm hopeful that whatever administration takes over next year, even though we have our preference, it actually moves the needle significantly in our direction, because I think the power of cannabis will be transformative to the planet.
If I ever find a magic wand, I'll make sure to get it over to you, Mikey. Thank you so much. Jim, let's put the magic wand in your hands. What's one thing you would change about the industry?
I have the wand.
There you go.
And I'm going to wave it. And this is what it's going to do. It's going to kill every digger, squirrel, russet, mite, aphid that touches my damn plants. If I had a wand to get rid of all those damn bugs, all I got are ladybugs. That's what I want. Organic way to kill those sons of bitches that haunt me. I feel like Elmer Fudd and Bill Murray in Caddyshack out on this farm every day. A grasshopper lands on my arm and I have a panic attack. So that's what I'd like to see.
Wasn't expecting that one, but a truly chemical-free way of getting rid of all those pesky pests that I know plague so many cultivators out there.
Man, I see a squirrel.
Oh, and the squirrels, they dig up my friend's little vegetable garden all the time, and they tell me all the time about it.
Yeah, and by the way, cannabis roots are very tasty.
I can imagine, especially for a squirrel. Thank you, Jim. Cameron, let's put the wand in your hands. What would you change?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's, the social justice thing is really a really important aspect of it. And you mentioned, I think, things other than that aspect of it. For me, it's actually wiping away the stigma. Because I think that if I could, with a magic wand, completely eliminate the stigma that exists in our culture, and have people understand that this is what the power of this plant is. I mean, like I said, I spent a lot of time down in the Amazon. They don't question the power of ayahuasca in the Amazon. It's part of their culture. It's part of their culture. They get it. The president of Peru is doing an ayahuasca ceremony before he's getting elected. This plant, we have to eliminate the stigma. Because once people understand what this plant can do for them individually, and even more importantly, for our community, I mean, we are divided like we've never been divided before. We need this plant to heal our communities. It's so important. And from that, we'll birth everything else. We will get the social justice aspects solved. We will help to rebuild these communities of color that have been decimated by the war on drugs. We will get the incorrectly incarcerated 40,000 people out of jail. We will expunge the records of those that need their records expunged. All of that will grow once people understand the true power of this plant. That's what I would do.
Awesome, Cameron. No, you're right. I often say that the cannabis industry is so unique because no one had to go to jail for the internet to get invented, right? But the cannabis industry was a movement before it became an industry, and isn't it what a coincidence that the Earth and planet Earth had everything that we needed all along in order to heal these communities and right the injustices that we as humans have caused. Thank you, Cameron. Chris, let's wrap up with you. Put the magic wand in your hand. What's one thing that you would change about the cannabis industry?
Well, the one thing I should wish after I hear the other three is that all three of their wishes come through. That I have it all. And everybody has it all. But if I really would, having discovered what I did here 5-6 years ago, and my dad said, "What the hell are you doing in the cannabis business? Have I created the son of Pablo?" And he meant Pablo Escobar. And all my colleagues who said, "Why are you wasting 30 or 25 years at that time of classic business into a highly questionable category?" I said, "Well, because it's going to be one of the most brilliant ones that we see in our lifetime." But then I discovered, by being in Cannagather and all the communities here in New York, this whole issue of social justice. So my wish would be, now that I know more about LPP and everything else, I'll give the wand to LPP, wave it, open those doors for all the people that have been wronged so far, open the doors, get them out. Now, Not just 4 of them, not just one that we have to fight for, but all 40 or 250,000, how many there are, and their families, and get that over with. And then we can start building a great industry. That's what I would do.
All of them, right, exactly right. All the wrongs that have been caused by the war on drugs. And I think that could be a whole other webinar in and of itself, talking about how our families reacted when we said, hey, we want to get into cannabis. But that's for another day. But thank you so much, everybody, Chris, Cameron, Jim, Mikey, for all of your wonderful insights and answering all the questions and participating on today's call. Thank you so much again for your time. Really appreciate it. We'll see you at the members after party, which will be happening after this. But before we go, I'd like to introduce Jake Kuzaruk from our team. He's VP of Business Development, and he's here to share Jake's Sponsor Corner with Isaac Bach from Alpharood. So over to you, Isaac and Jake.
Thanks, Louis. And wow, that was a great panel. I am still getting over those final answers. That was badass, to say the least. Isaac, thanks again for joining us today. And I know our audience would love to hear this in your own words, but please give us the full rundown on Alpharood and the services you provide for the cannabis industry.
Absolutely, Jake. Well, first off, thank you and the rest of the Arcview group for allowing us to sponsor such an awesome panel. Truly unbelievable. But Alpharood is a full-service insurance brokerage and risk consulting firm focused particularly on the cannabis, hemp, and CBD space. We felt it was extremely important to focus solely on this space so we could ingrain ourselves in the community, help our clients continue to push all the great things that our panelists mentioned today, and grow their businesses properly and with those great ethos they mentioned.
Right on. Now tell us, who's the most appropriate fit for Alpharood? Walk us through, would be kind of a target client, what degree of traction is ideal, and what regions you specialize in, if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, truthfully, we don't turn away anyone. We want to help the industry grow as a whole. So we work with, small CBD brands that are just starting out, all the way through some of the biggest names in the space, multi-state operators and companies that are publicly listed in Canada. In terms of regions, obviously we have a lot on the West Coast. Some of our biggest clients are actually based in Massachusetts with operations in Pennsylvania and Ohio. So we're making a big push on the East Coast as well through the Midwest with all the new legislation that is coming or hopefully is coming soon, in the next couple of weeks with the elections coming up. So we kind of run the gamut. Probably the biggest single vertical that has been a focus for us lately is delivery. As you can imagine, with everyone home due to COVID, delivery has become a very hot topic for a number of companies in the space. So trying to find creative solutions for our clients there.
Glad to hear you're back in my native Midwest. Fun one here. What are some of the strangest products or most unique brands you've worked with? I can imagine you've insured some interesting projects.
Yeah, I mean, insurance is one of the more buttoned up industries, as you like to say. So, we've worked with a few that are, CBD based intimate products. So I'm sure you guys can imagine what insurance underwriters, the looks on their face when we got on the phone with them and, Zoomed with them and discussed those risks. So that one, got a few laughs around the office just with the reactions we got throughout the insurance marketplace. So we'd probably say that one for sure is the most interesting one we've had so far.
I can imagine. We know the industry well. I think, Quim actually ended up winning on stage at one of our past pitch events. I think they're actually doing a crowdfunding campaign right now. Well, when is the right time to connect with Alpharood, and how does the process unfold?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on what your business is, right? If you're a new company that's just starting out, that is a first-time insurance buyer, the sooner you reach out to us, the better. A lot of companies have to meet, contractual requirements with vendors, landlords, things of that nature. So the more time we have to work with those newer companies, the better, and we'll build your insurance program out over the course of, your company. For a more sophisticated company who's had insurance either with us or through another broker, a lot of times insurance brokers only work, about 2 months prior to the renewal date. We're kind of an all year round service. We do a lot more than just place policies. We help you with your full risk management profile. But the sweet spot really is if you're looking for a particular policy, that 120 to 90 day window, if you want to make sure that there's no gaps in coverage, which can cause everyone headaches in the back end.
Oh yeah, you don't want that given how unpredictable this year has been. Excellent. So you're the guys we call on at midnight on a Friday night when the kitchen's on fire and everything's burning down. Excellent. I'll walk you through.
Yeah, exactly. We take a very consultative approach. Truthfully, a lot of our calls are very consultative. We're actually not working with most of the people we talk to at this point. We're just doing program reviews. So, if you really need something that's insurance related, whether you're a current client, future client, prospective client, we're here for you guys. We want to be, a core member of the cannabis community to help everyone grow. So, yes, I'm sure my girlfriend will not be happy, but I will answer the phone at midnight on a Friday night if someone needs me.
I love it. Well, walk me through how this community, the Arcview community, can assist, and what are the core needs for Alpharood right now?
Yeah, so like everyone else on the panel said, we're trying to build a ethical company, and we're trying to do the right things to help the community grow. And we want to partner with other service providers because we're not obviously directly in the cannabis space. We're kind of an ancillary business. So we want to partner not only with our clients who are doing things the right way, but we want to partner with other service providers. So building our network through the Arcview community will help us point, our clients in the right direction. If they need things like financing, licensing help, anything of that nature, we want to be able to point them in the right direction to someone we trust and someone who we align with on those ethical issues.
I love it. There's been a lot of organizations mentioned tonight. Last Prisoner Project, the Jackson County Fire Relief Fund, which we'll break into in a second. But tell me about some of the associations, communities that Alpharood's a part of.
Yeah, so like a lot of people mentioned on the panel today, we are currently working through some insurance regulations to have a best partner with Last Prisoners Project. Got to work through some of those legal issues. Just some other communities we're involved with. We're members of the Trailblazers community, so we actually got a chance to meet Kim and Laura out in California this last week. They put on an awesome event, so kudos to those guys. And then kind of on the risk management side, there's an organization called the National Cannabis Risk Management Association that we're one of the broker members of. So Rocco and that team does a great job of helping the cannabis community on the risk management side as well.
We love Rocco, member of Arcview as well, by the way. And to close out, what is the best way to get in touch with you? And please recap any offers that you're running for Arcview's network.
Yeah, so the best way to reach out is info@alpharood.co. That's kind of our team inbox. You can shoot myself or one of my two founding partners an email as well. Jake, I believe you have those, so I won't go into listing them all out. And then other than that, in terms of deals, we're not the actual insurance company. So I wish I could say, everyone gets 50% off insurance premiums, which would be a much needed relief in this industry, as I'm sure everyone can attest to on the call. But, there are some fees associated a lot of times with the initial purchase of a policy. So we'll do reduced or cut fees altogether for members of the Arcview community.
Reduced, cut fees. I love it. Mutual value. Isaac, thanks for joining us. And obviously, Alpharood, info@alpharood.co. It's down in the chat window below if you want to get in touch. Excellent. So now let me break into some final closing points here. As we wrap up today, we'd like to encourage those who are able to donate to the Jackson County Fire Relief Fund, which we, along with Jim Belushi, are supporting. There is a link into the chat. Whatever you put in, we're going to match. So I implore you, force us to open up our wallets and please donate to this extremely important cause to support small cultivators. While we share those, you'll also notice a webinar survey has popped up. Please share your thoughts on today's webinars and the important topics you'd like to see going forward. We're going to have plenty more of these every month. And as always, visit arcviewaccess.com for all the latest activities and events at Arcview. The links are in the chat once again. What's new? Arcview Ignites. If you are an operator seeking capital, this is the route to put your deal in front of the network, get hands-on coaching, get some direct feedback from investors around your pitch. On the 27th, I am pleased to report Arcview Explorers. We're doing another virtual tour, totally free or totally available to the members of the public, $25 for non-members, free for members. And that is going to be with the amazing Hemp Foundry, who has been a regular fixture, of course, on Arcview's stage over years. Now on the 29th, this one is very near and dear to my heart. I am pleased to announce the launch of High Dining and Safe Dosing. Join top chefs for an infused culinary experience with Pantry. If you don't know Pantry, it's here's some of their products right there. but it's going to be public. If you join, we're going to have the video streaming. And of course, you're going to learn how to cook a 4-course infused dinner. And then join us live, of course. We got Chef Mag, Chef Holden, the founders of Pantry, here to answer your questions. Yeah, it's a new one for Arcview. On the 2nd, I'm pleased to report that WIN, our Women's Investor Network, has the Science of the Plant. This is once again fully public with Dr. June Chin and Wendy Nguyen. For members only, on November 5th, Arcview Showcase featuring Toast and Pantry. But please stay connected with us. The Women's Investor Network, we're releasing a shopping guide for the holidays. We have Arcview's market research. You might have noticed we dropped the State of Legal Cannabis Markets 8th edition. There is another update coming to that one, and it is the #1 cited research within cannabis. Arcview Collective Funds. If you're not a member now, time to get involved. And of course, Metro events are coming soon. So we're going to get back to doing some smaller in-persons, socially distanced, of course. And last but not least, if you're an Arcview member, we have our members only after party. You got to exit this video link, re-enter via the other after party link that we send to your email when you're registered. Register through the member portal if you're still struggling here. I can't wait to see you in the after party. Thank you all for joining us today. And in the words of Troy, Steve, and everybody else, be well and be free.